Hello, everybody. How's it going? I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well because today we're talking about music, and today we're looking at all of my purchases and music pickups from March 2024. Now, I've already had a few videos on this channel this month where I go over, some of what I've had, that massive album music haul for vinyl records, and that's still growing. There's been some more additions to that. I just did a great video with Mike from Grab a Stack of Rock, and I showed off a few recent purchases for that. But this is everything. So some of that you're going to see. Some of this is brand new. Some of this is great stuff. Some of this is nightmare inducing. So let's get into it. Let's start with the nightmare. So I've got a couple tapes, and then the rest is CDs. So this is, if you're from the UK of a certain age, you might know who this is. Or if you're into terrifying music, you'll know who this is. This is Jive Bunny, the album. That is Nightmare Fuel there. There's a side. So what this is, I'll show off. You might not be able to read. Yeah, I can't quite read it. You've got, side one, Swing the Mood, Rock and Roll Party Mix, Lovers Mix, Do You Want to Rock? So you might be able to tell if you're, if you've ever been a wedding DJ or something like that. These are just mashups and remixes of kind of that 50s, early 60s rock and roll, some swing stuff, like you have a Glenn Miller medley, all set to a quote danceable beat that doesn't stop. So the first 3 minutes, you're kind of like, oh, this is kind of fun. You're getting all these very memorable rock and roll choruses, choo choo chaboogie and tutti frutti, stuff like that. But then it doesn't stop. It just keeps going and going. And all the while, like, see this rabbit? Seems innocent enough, but like, just like the music, it seems fine. And then it just gets worse and worse and more terrifying. So I'm really happy I have this in the collection now. I was a wedding DJ in a previous life. I mean, I guess I still am. And this is the kind of stuff you could play. Shouldn't play, but you could play. So here you go. Jive Bunny, the album, 50 cents. Worth every penny. For Halloween music, yeah, perfect. Next tape, this is on the total opposite end of the spectrum. Allied Forces by Triumph. Canadian hard rock metal band. And for those who don't know Triumph, I mean, yeah, Canadian hard rock metal, but this is one of their classic albums. They've got a really great run of classic albums. In fact, I don't really think they have any weak albums per se. But this is among one of the ones to check out. If you've never checked them out before, Allied Forces, I think, Allied Forces is one of the ones you can check out. Found this for a good deal at my local record store. And I think Triumph are a band that lend themselves well to tape. So happy to grab that as well. All right, now into the CDs. I've got 4 Metallica albums. The only other Metallica albums I've ever owned physical copies of are Ride the Lightning and the Black Album. That's odd. I like Metallica. I like a lot of Metallica, not all of Metallica, but I like a good chunk of their output. How can I never have, Master of Puppets or Justice for All or Kill 'Em All or anything like that? Well, some of that is getting solved. The thing I like about Metallica too is, I mean, they've got a lot of albums, but it's not an unreasonable amount. If I wanted to go from here to kind of fill in the rest of the gaps, I could, because I have those 2 now, and I've got these 4 I've added. So, we could get there. We could get there. So we've got, we're going to start with Load. There's the album cover, and, once you can't unsee it. There we go. Again, I mean, it started with the Black Album, but a lot of people heard this one where they're definitely slowing things down, entering, maybe as Jamie Laszlo would call it, the douche rock category or butt rock category, that kind of thing. I think it's a pretty good album. It's their longest album, which is kind of a problem Metallica has in general, just making albums that are way too long for their own good. But there's a lot of good stuff on here. I haven't listened to it for a while, but I was checking it out again recently, and yeah, I like it. Load by Metallica. Second one here is, I guess not one of their albums per se, but Garage Inc., which is, 2 discs of, you have new recordings from 98, Garage Days Revisited from 87, Revisited from 84, B-sides and one-offs 88 to 91, and then Motorache 95. So you're getting some good variety. I like that I still have a sticker on there. There's the side there. There. Lots of good stuff, of course. Most notable for me is, their Motorhead stuff, as well as Bread Fan, their Budgie cover. A really cool album. I like this one a lot. Good to check out. Next, along that same vein, maybe not in their studio output, but we have S&M, Symphony and Metallica, which I actually really don't like. I mean, it's going to be hard to tell because this is a digital recording, but that back, like, it just looks like a low quality back cover there. This is okay. I think some songs lend themselves to their symphonic treatment a bit more than others on here. But it's still a fun album, and it's always a fun idea for rock bands to perform with a symphony. It's a good video idea. Rock bands and symphonies when they perform together. And the fourth one here is an album that is really good, except for the production. And maybe now we already know what I'm talking about. This is Death Magnetic. Really good album, a lot of good songs on it. For a lot of people, this was, a return to form, as it were, after, Saint Anger and then Load and Reload, and people were just kind of unhappy with the direction they were going. I like some of that stuff too, but Death Magnetic, style-wise, is more thrashy. Just that production, like, it just hurts. Especially this, I was listening to the CD. They've since cleaned it up, and the version that's on most streaming services is a remastered version. This is not that, and you can tell it's suffers from the loudness wars, as it were. So that's all the four Metallica albums that we've got. So good chunk of their collection. Next up is two albums of one of my favorite bands. And these are both albums I never owned physically, even though I should have, because I enjoy both of them. But I had like almost everything up to this point, and then I just sort of, went digital. I never grabbed these. I should have grabbed them. They're one of my favorite bands, the Decemberists, who decided to kind of revisit their catalog. I've got tickets to see them in July. I'm really pumped. They're, folk rock, folk pop in a very narrative style. A lot of their music, not all of it, but like 90% of it, 80% of it is very conceptual, very narratively focused. So if you're someone who loves stories and storytelling, especially if you're kind of imagining those like late 19th century authors, early 20th century authors, this is perfect for you. You're going to learn a lot of new words too if you listen to the cover. So if you've ever wanted a band to help you with your vocabulary, Bad Religion is one, December is another one. Check them out. Expand your vocabulary horizons. That might not be a word. This is the album The King is Dead, which has a good number of their hits. So if you've never heard the Decemberists before, you may have heard their songs, Rocks in the Box, or All Arise, June Hymn as well. I've heard those quite frequently in the grocery store. This is a little more, I want to say folky, but all their music is quite folky. Americana-y, let's say that. Yeah, a little more Americana-y. So they're there on the back cover, and that kind of gives you a bit more of an idea. There we go. And a lot of people too, they didn't like this album quite as much because it wasn't as narrative focused as some of their other releases. You didn't have, songs with characters being named and things like that. You still get that a little bit. But yeah, I get it. I really like it though. Then this one is total opposite end of that spectrum, which I wasn't as taken with it at first. I thought it was like, what if the Decemberists did the Decemberists? This is like the ultimate Decemberists assemble kind of album. This is the Crane Wife from 2006. There. Very much not a concept album, but you start with the Crane Wife part three to open up the album, and then part 1 and 2 is further down. But you have The Island, very, I don't want to say prog rocky, but very narrative focused, very symphonic. What songs do I really like on here? Yankee Bayonet, again, like that's a Decemberist song. I was going to ask you, who would ever write a song called the Yankee Bayonet? It would be the Decemberists. Oh, Valentia is really good. I think Shankill Butchers is one of my favorite songs on it, as well as Sons and Daughters, and then The Crane Wife, one in parts 1 and 2 on here as well. A really good album. Very much the ultimate Decemberist album. So not one of my favorites because it's almost too much Decemberist, if that makes sense. Really good one. So happy to get those two. This one was an eBay purchase. I but some of these have always belonged to my dad, so I would listen to them then realizing I don't have my own copies of these, so fixing that. This is Rush, Roll the Bones, an album that I really like. I think the title track, specifically the rap sections of the title track, are what people remember about this album. That kind of brings it down. But I think this is a great album. Like Dreamline and Bravado, into Roll the Bones. Like that's a great opening three songs there. The Big Wheel I like a lot, and then I actually like You Bet Your Life a lot as well. I think it showed them entering the 90s in style. Presto, I didn't really like. I find the production on that quite drab, the songwriting a little eh. But Roll the Bones, I really like from Rush. It's a good one here. Next, for those of you who didn't see my last What's Good video with Grab a Stack of Rock, check it out. I'll have a link for that in the description. But we're going to go through these items. Some of them I've checked out so far, but some I haven't. So this is Deep Purple, Nobody's Perfect, live album. Quite often people say, is this a necessary live album from the band? No, especially once you've got live in Japan and Europe. You're not going to need much more, but this has some great performances on it. And I think it's really cool when live albums capture specific tours, specific elements, specific lineups of the band. This album does that really well. Next, I haven't checked out yet is Shadows Exposed, but I will check it out. It's an EP from 2021, 5 tracks. There you go. There's a QR code there, so maybe you can scan it and see where you go. Don't come back and complain. Next, I have checked this one out. This is the new album from Canadian, hard rock grunge. Do I want to say icons? Let's just say icons. That might be generous. Svengali, Bombs and Battle Scars. I have checked this one out and I like it a lot. It's quite enjoyable if you're into that sort of like hard rock grunge. There's a lot to love on here. And then haven't checked this out, but Max the Axe of Punk covers Oktoberfest Cheer. Gonna get into that. And then where do we go? Let's switch the order around because then it gets into two things that I showed off on that same video. So we're going to change the order here, do those partway through. This was a Value Village find. This is the debut album, I believe, from Damian Junior Gong Marley. Welcome to Jamrock. If I believe Damian Marley is the youngest of Bob Marley's kids, there's a lot of them. This is quite a notable album. It's really, really good. That's why it's notable. But it was one of the first kind of reggae albums to win in the Grammys outside of the reggae category. It's definitely really hip hop inspired as well, both in the production and delivery, but it's also a really, really great reggae track. Like a lot of the samples, so we're kind of emphasizing that sampling culture. And for those of you who don't know, actually, hip hop sort of found its roots within Caribbean, toasting and dub culture as well. But welcome to Jamrock samples in a Kazumi. And then, I didn't take note, another track in here samples a really classic Skadlights tune as well. So it's really cool. And then you're also featuring, Stephen Marley on here. You've got Stephen Marley on a few tracks, as well as Ika Mouse as well. So a really cool album if you're into hip hop. And if you're into Bob Marley and you want to expand into the Marley family tree, there's a lot of artists you can do that with. And this is a great album to check out. Next up, let's go this one. This is the other thrift store found. You'll see why I said that. This is Star Wars A New Hope Special Edition. This is a 2-disc set. And what's really cool about this, so not only is it a great soundtrack, John Williams, on 2 CDs, it's got previously unreleased and then previously kind of extended sections delivered as well. Again, you might not be able to read that. Delivered in the sequence order of the movie, which they talk a lot about. There's a really cool booklet in here that has a lot of cool movie shots, but also just soundtrack writing notes unique to the special edition and this new edition of the soundtrack. So not just writing these songs, but why it's cool to sequence them now in the order that you hear them in the movie. And then kind of what take you're getting on the recording. So we recorded, this take on this day, and that's the one that wound up in the movie, and that's really cool. And it's really cool to get, like, you wouldn't think of a soundtrack as having, previously unreleased or blah, 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 but this is a good one to have. I think this came out, it came out around the special edition time. So what was that? 97? 97, yeah. I remember those. The weird part is, as a youngin', we had that VHS kind of box set of the standard one. So it's, if I describe it, it's like slipcase black. I think A New Hope was maybe with purple text. And then I think Empire Strikes Back was like a light blue text. the other Return of the Jedi was red, yeah. And then we did buy this one, the special edition with the gold kind of VHS slipcase. And I knew there were the added scenes, which even as a kid, that Jabba scene's terrible. I was like, don't bother doing it if it's going to look like that. Go back to practical effects. But I never really paid attention to a lot of the other touch-ups they did. So I want to go back and do that, but it's hard to do because when you rely on a streaming service, you only get what they provide to you as being available, and you're never really sure which cut or edition. And they've even done stuff on the new streaming versions that they don't really tell you about. So physical media, that's where it's at. Okay, now we'll go into this one. This is a cool release. This is Angel's Eggs by Gong. This is the second in the Teapot Gnome. Is it Teapot Gnome or Flying? Radio Gnome Invisible trilogy, starting with Teapot Gnome, ending with You. So this edition has, so it's remastered from 2018. It's got all the studio tracks, bonus tracks, which are, early versions and a single version, and then a second CD, which is a selections of a live performance from Rouen, Club Arc-en-Ciel in Rouen, France, August 17th, 1973. Cool album. I want to get all of them in these sort of digipack editions. You get little booklets which have, ephemera from the band and history of the band and stuff like that. I have a really cool edition of You that I think is also from 2018, but it's not in this style because I've seen that one in this style. It has a couple of bonus studio tracks, but not the live one. And I would like that because this one feels a little more space rocky. And I keep saying this one, Angel's Eggs, feels a little more psychedelic and space rocky. We're just getting the introduction of Steve Hillage into the band. I think You, as the follow-up, has a bit more of that fusion influence that I really like with the band. This is really fun. It's a lot of fun. They're such a weird, unique band, and really cool to get that. And this is a really cool addition to have. So I want to kind of get as many of those as I can. Then we're going to round it off with the two items that I did show off on the other video. So this is Bleachers self-titled CD. Bleachers. Did I have to say both? Maybe. Here's the back. Check out the track Modern Girl, Tiny Moves, and Isimo. I really like this one. That's my top three choices for the album. Never heard of the Bleachers. Think of Bruce Springsteen by way of Taylor Swift. Why would I say that? Because that's kind of what it sounds like. But also Jack Antonoff, Bleachers is sort of his vehicle for production. Lyrically, he likes to wax nice nostalgic on, the imperfectness of childhood and longing for a pastime that you think was great, but it really wasn't that great. And production-wise and songwriting-wise, he works with a lot of notable pop acts today, such as Taylor Swift, Lana Del Rey, Carly Rae Jepsen, a lot of artists like that, some of them are featured on this album, as well as Florence Welch from Florence and the Machine. So I think right away, if that kind of sounds interesting, check it out. And if not, check Modern Girl. If you're into that like Billy Joel-esque shouted lyrics, that's a great anthem. And then we're gonna wind down with this really cool, The Complete Beat, The Beat, or the English Beat for us in the US box set. There you get all three of their studio albums. So Just Can't Stop, What Happened, and Special Beat Service. Is that what it is? Special Beat Service? Or yeah, Special Beat Service. And then a bonus album called Bonus Beat, where 2 discs you get 12-inch singles, dub versions, and then on disc 2 you get 3 separate Peel sessions, and then a selection of live recordings as well. Just 4. That's okay. And the cool thing too, the studio albums have the bonus tracks, like the international edition ones, plus not previously released tracks. So this is, yeah, there are, some English beat recordings out there that aren't on here, some live stuff like that, some albums under that name, since the band parted ways. He's no longer with us, but Rankin Roger had a version of The Beat, which I don't think I ever saw that version. I believe I saw the one more associated with this name, The English Beat. But they both since put out some albums that aren't represented on here. But for most fans, they see the band as being, one whole band. I disagree, but here we are. It's also got a really cool booklet that talks about the history of the band and the albums as well. But this is The Complete Beat. Like I'm good. I don't necessarily, this is a band I really like, but I don't necessarily know if I need to expand further. If you're going to check out their debut album, That's probably the most two-tony, most upbeat. What Happened expands that sound really well. I've been listening to that one lately. It gets into a bit more of that 80s production, which is a little more poppy, but musically, well, lyrically, it's a lot more serious and politically toned and politically informed. But musically, it kind of expands a bit. So you do have a couple more two-tony ska tracks, but a little more dub inspired stuff or reggae. A little more kind of, I say new wave, but not in that synthy way, but in sort of that dark and metallic way. You get that a little bit on here as well. So with that, those are my pickups for March 2024. I'm pumped. These are all great, except for that Jive Bunny. That can rot in hell, but it'll just come back just like Jason. Regardless of that, though, I'm pumped for all these albums. There's one more that came out today, Friday. I pre-ordered it, the new and last Sum 41 album, Heaven and Hell. I got my email yesterday saying it shipped, and I think it's shipping from the UK. So I've listened to the album, don't have it physically yet, so that'll go into next month. But I'm really enjoying it so far. They have a cover of Paint It Black. Don't think they needed a cover of Paint It Black. But otherwise, I think this is a fantastic album. Maybe their best. Okay, enough of that. I'm going to catch you all next time. Bye.